Right. This is what I'm gonna talk. Just about 10 points, not much. But I'll be happy to have more questions plus share your experience as well. This is some of the stuff that I have gone through my career, starting from academics to and my own startups, and then a couple of banks plus software company, and right here, HNV now. So this is my version and how I look at it, but I really appreciate your views as well. Maybe you can raise that as a question, or maybe you can share your views in the chat box. All right. So it is everywhere. Like AI is a general purpose technology. I believe no matter what you do, either telco or maybe FMCG, e-commerce, social commerce, health, biotech, whatsoever, AI is there. So there's no exceptions when it comes to banking. I started my career with more of like FinTech because my startups also more towards FinTech and facilitating social commerce. That's where we started. But eventually, when it comes to handling customer inquiries, plus uh, maybe like handling the traffic's volume, handling fraud detections, etc., we face a couple of questions like challenges when it comes to handling these things. Recruiting people it's a bit expensive being a startup, so we thought of how we can automate that. Then we thought of using a lot of open source tools such that AI automation tools, etc. So we started automating that even without having the intention to use AI, but automatically we had to use it. So then I had to move to corporate environment. So when it comes to corporate environment, it's same is because they can't escape out of this. In the corporate environment, what happened is that the losses they don't identify as losses. Sometimes they see that as a cost, but it's a loss. They don't see that as a cost unless they realize it's a waste. So right now organizations are really conscious when it comes to cost and waste. So right now they are trying to identify where they can do the cost optimization. That's of course when it comes to human capital, it's a huge liability. How they can replace certain humans and processes with automations. It's a buzzword these days even in Sri Lanka. Initially, when we before I joined this company, we were pitching to a few companies with my startup for AI automations and use content summarization, etc. Nobody wanted to have them, so they say it's like, okay, so this is a fancy technology, but we are not ready to use that. And then some of the feedbacks that we got, because I used to travel Cambodia, Vietnam, and Eastern Asia. So some of the feedbacks that we got is, okay, this can be done, but there are a couple of errors. It is not 100% correct. So we can't have them. So we can't trust it because it makes errors. So these are some of the feedbacks that we got. Right. But now I'm again with the corporate. So now we see corporates are going behind them is because the trend is hype is automations. Every experts or maybe global Fortune 500 companies massively investing on them. So in that case, this part of the world also going behind and trying to find use cases how we can use these technologies. But I don't like that intention is because it's just sake of technology, but we need to find problems and then technology. All right, so then when it comes to today, as of now, we have two type of things. This is my definition: traditional AI and Gen AI. So traditional AI means what? Like till deep reinforcement and recurrent neural network, all these things has become traditional AI. We spent sort of considerable amount of time, our lifetime, to learn various AI expert system, fuzzy logic, genetic AI, certain genetic algorithm, etc. But right now, today, as of today, we no longer use them in the industries. We do use with various use cases. We do have a couple of products which is built on top of this traditional AI, which is in the production system right now. But no longer we are much worrying of these things because nowadays people are talking about how we can do automations and AI applications without worrying and learning much on AI. Is because nowadays most of these lean professionals and Six Sigma professionals, they are not AI expert. They are doing process engineering and process re-engineering and all that. But having these fancy tools today, they can do automations even without learning AI. Another thing is that some of the corporate leaders must understand is that AI is not perfect. For me, it's an idiot. Is because if you're using ChatGPT or maybe Gemini or whatsoever, like you will understand, you can have a dialogue, but based on your prompt, it responds. So you can't expect them to have same conscious, same as you, but it gives sometimes idiotic answer. It's totally reflecting and depending on how you prompt on top of it. But how you can become smart is if you can use this idiot in an intelligent manner. So that's why you can use this AI in a smart manner. So when it comes to traditional AI, we were using this for data analytics and analysis and predictions, or maybe like you develop fancy dashboards, forecasting, etc. Uh, but today, when it comes to this dashboard and analyze data, someone has to see that and make a decision. Maybe based on the forecasting, or maybe based on the dashboard, somebody has to make a decision, or maybe senior manager level of a bank, or maybe bank manager, or maybe marketing manager has to make a decision. It can use set of results, but it can't make a decision. Even though it can make a decision, but it's not the the way we want, and it can't act on that. But when it comes to Gen AI, we can do two main things. One is it can do reasoning. Another thing is can do is actions. So based on reasoning, people can deep dive it, or maybe argue on that, or maybe you can have another person to come up with argument and reasoning. Another person can argue on that reason. Likewise, you can develop AI agents to come up with reasoning and argue on top of that, go through various validations, and then act on that. So it's totally depend on how people are architecting these things. So as per my definitions, I identify them as two categories: traditional AI and Gen AI. So now, this is what I actually mean by traditional AI now, is because we were spending a lot of time till 2022 when it comes to AI with deep learning. Basically, like we need to have a label data. So label, we consider them as always the truth. So the label, against to label data only, we can see other data. So like whether it's true or going to be false, false positive, whatsoever. So unless you have like label data, you can achieve certain things. But when you don't have label data, you can't get what it is. But then again, you have to base on the outputs, report like feedback, put the feedback again as input, then redo the process and fine tune the model and keep continue that maybe a number of times till you reach the expected desired goal. The how many times, nobody knows. It's totally dependent on your satisfactions. Another thing is it's always gives repeatable outputs and no reasoning and no explanations when it comes to the output. And these models you need to adjust time to time and adapt over time. And sometimes when it comes to over the year, in January you might get different results, February, March you might get various results when you keep adding and increase the size of data. But like the amount of time you spend on that is lot, and the maybe the team size in the enterprise size level, it's lot. So then again, it's keep adding your cost. Okay, so right now we are trying to save time with this concept called RAC. It is retrieval augmented generation. So now with the rise of this LLM and all that, so actually like not only LLM, so with RAG we are using something the concept called small language model, which is trained on less number of parameters and which has less consumption of computation, and the maintenance and all that's very cheaper compared to LLM. And actually like when it comes to LLM, use of small language models is much accurate compared to LLM. especially when it comes to enterprise level, small tasks automation, which doesn't require, a whole lot of world's knowledge and all that. Maybe per se, like identifying a dispute of a credit card, maybe identifying, or maybe like identifying a malfunction of a system, certain things. There is specific knowledge, so we can rack on top of a small language model. So how this rack works? Racks basically, forget about this all buzzy, this all traditional email and labeled it and all that. You could have specific knowledge, could be a PDF file, or could be a document, or maybe a JSON record, sort of JSON records, or MongoDB whatsoever. You can get that into vector index, and then you can use this to prompt on top of either LLM or maybe small language model. Then you can produce an answer. So that's basically more of like generations, but how it becomes an agent, and like a React agent, we call reasoning and action. So you can do this kind of like a workflow. This is a like a prompt workflow, basically, like it's in natural language. I believe anyone can understand this text. Like, follow these steps. Like this is the objective. Like loan application processing. Follow these steps, and then these are the benefits. And end of this is what I want. You can in simple English, you can explain. So this is your prompt. So based on this, it can go through the content and do the reasoning and act accordingly. This action could be either calling an API, or maybe triggering another endpoint, or maybe push notification whatsoever. The action could be something, or maybe a internal calling internal function. But this can reason and act off of that. Then you don't have to label data and keep spending time on training and validation and all that. But this doesn't make 100% accurate answers as per my experience. So whenever you use small language models, so we have done some use cases which reach close to 90%, but when it comes to LLM, so it is much less actually, and it causes a lot of hallucination as well. So okay, we'll jump into banking. So as per my understanding, banking is nothing but it processes and sort of workflows. Per se, you are making a deposit, or maybe withdrawing, borrowing, whatsoever is a process, well-defined process, and it has workflows. Why workflows? There is a set of stages of decision makings. Per se, you are applying for a credit card. Then bank has to go through your credit worthiness and do the credit scoring, risk calculations, and then go through several approval levels, then print the card and dispatch. So it's a workflow, and it has a couple of stages: approval, such as decision making. So all this about this processes and workflows. So this is like a famous quote that could define banking is a process of turning promises into money. Efficient workflows and reliable process make it possible. So I have been in this BFS close to 15 years. So apart from these things, I haven't seen much except other value-added services such as vault services, and like safe lockers, and or maybe like printing checks, card, etc. All these are like a process and workflows. So like if you're like a programmer, or maybe basically you're a programmer, or maybe if you're having a programming background, you can easily understand if something is a logical process and workflow. This is all about more of like if and else. So if something is if and else, so if and else is a decision point, but in order to make this and else decision, you need to process some amount of data and reason it and act on that. So which is pretty much doable when it comes to this agentic AI concept. But challenge is that is okay. Theoretically, it is possible to automate all these things, but the real challenge is that this makes errors so far. So, but we need to understand what is the cost of this error. So we'll go there. The cost of errors could be millions, billions. Based on that, we need to decide the which workflow we're gonna address with which technology, or maybe with the traditional or Gen AI, whatsoever. All right. So this is more of like these are the type of banking workflows you can see typically in the banking scenarios. Like customer management. Could be like onboarding new customer, or maybe new open account opening. Or within that, we have something called KYC, know your customer process, and account closure, or maybe raising a dispute, and borrowing money or mortgage, applying for a lease, etc. And apart from these banking functions, we have this risk and compliance, information security, or maybe integrated risk, etc. These also sort of workflows per se, but when it comes to this area like risk and compliance, operational risk, integrated risk, all these things, you need to analyze data. So based on data, then you need to come to a conclusion. So that is could be a massive amount of data. Then again, a lot of traditional AI features such that could be predictive analysis, or maybe time series forecasting might help with these things, sometimes much better than agentic AI. So then we need to realize when it comes to banking, okay, Gen AI is a good Gen and agentic AI is a good approach, but when it comes to a perfect solution, it is a combination of all this Gen AI and traditional AI as well. So right now in the banking domain, I would say for almost everything, AI is already there. So even before this Gen AI comes to the picture, so the banks were using a lot of AI ML applications when it comes to anti-money laundering, and even account opening to KYC process and all these things. The only thing differ is that we get more opportunity to replace real human and save our FTCs, save human times. And this is an interesting YouTube lecture that I watched recently. Someone called Watersman from here, MIT Solon. So this is actually a really interesting statement. Maybe I should got a screenshot of this YouTube video. Maybe you can watch if you are interested. He says the first law of digital innovation is that technology changes quickly, organization change much more slowly. Like by the time we roll out a technology within, I would say, especially in banking sector, there could be few more new technologies already there in the market. Is because banking is all about not only the technology, about few components, policies, process, procedures, and people. These sort of things. So you might be able to replace certain factors like maybe like human people factor, and then again regulatory facts comes when it comes to policies and procedures. Sometimes certain things per se, even though we can do the KYC process automatically in certain geographical locations, we can't do without a human, is because certain things being regulated. And sometimes there are a lot of technical barriers such that, for example, in Sri Lanka, so our banks facing certain challenges when it comes to usage of clouds. So it's because our regulator is restricting a lot of things when it comes to storing PII information or maybe custom information on cloud infrastructure. So most of these banking applications are on-prem. So certain fintech applications, I would say, they're using cloud infrastructures or maybe SaaS product, but when it comes to banking ecosystem, it's very less. So we do use, but when it comes to core systems, it is very less. So these reduce this velocity, like it's takes very long time for these conversions to happen. Another thing is, this I mentioned in the beginning as well, like people trying to invest on technologies. Before this employment, I used to work with a couple of banks. So years back, we had a tech hype with this blockchain. So everybody in the bank wanted to do an application with blockchain and go for a PR conference. Then they can say like, okay, so we are the first to do in blockchain application in this country, or maybe something like that. Because like the thing they understand is, okay, we can have a brand value saying that we are using these fancy technologies, but they don't have a real use case to use that. So technically we have a lot of restrictions when it comes to using cryptocurrencies and all that in the banking ecosystems, but we can do various other applications like shared KYC, or maybe contract by like a distributed contracts, smart contracts. and or maybe like peer-to-peer lending, stuff like that. But instead of worrying of these things, certain organizations like banks trying to jump into technologies just because that is fancy. So AI also pretty much same. In a couple of cases, since agentic AI become the hype, so people are trying to find various use cases to use the technology. But instant, if you check companies like Boeing, I would say Boeing and Citigroup, so what they're trying to do is like they're trying to find use cases like problems and then choose the technology. So when choosing the technology, that could be yes, agentic AI, and then the another part could be like traditional AI, or maybe very boring, if else condition sort of IT, maybe software applications. It's combination of everything. So without that, the fancy technology added at zero value if you don't find the right use case. So other thing is we need to invest in opportunities per se, like agentic AI, it's a good thing. Then we have a lot of use cases when it comes to cost reduction. So cost reduction is a problem. So it's an opportunity to the bank to save money. So that will anyway increase the revenue. So that's an opportunity. So we can invest money to reduce the cost as a cost reduction initiative. So it's a good approach to use agentic AI, or that could be like traditional AI, or maybe blockchain, or whatsoever, no matter what's the technology. So if then agentic technology comes up, that means so that's the perfect technology that the methodology that we have to figure out is the best approach. So transforming through Gen AI. So I got a lot of Reddit and LinkedIn articles there, and there people are talking about lot of these people from Fortune 500 and foreign banks. I have a lot of people connected with me on LinkedIn who are working for overseas banks. So they have shared a lot of articles saying like we are using agentic AI and Gen AI for these kind of use cases, and we have this much of results and all that. Very one of the successful use case that I also have involved is one of the largest bank in US. So they have reached close to 60 to 80% of containment rate when it comes to call center automations. So initially the project started with traditional AI, ML, and then deep learning. And then we went through traditional natural language processing. We were doing optimization there, and suddenly OpenAI came into the picture. So we use OpenAI APIs, and then what we did was we leveraged same thing on top of the traditional AI. So there are certain things for this false positives and false negative which we couldn't handle with the traditional AI. We forwarded towards the OpenAI. So what we did was when traditional AI reached close to 60 to 50, like 60 to 75% sort of value, containment rate, we wrote the rest of things to OpenAI, so we reached close to 90%. So we use that as a optimization tool, not totally replacement to traditional AI. And when it comes to Gen AI, already making waves in the banking industry, like as this text says, the court says like 6 of every 10 organizations are already fully embracing transformative potential, increasing from 2023. Only 45% of the organization had fully embraced Gen AI, according to the NTT Data's research. So this is globally, but when it comes to my part of the world, I would say close to 55 or maybe 60% projects are failing. Is because the understanding of genetic AI, or maybe like agentic AI, or maybe generative AI is very less, because they're trying to replace something totally with agentic AI, or maybe like per se like they're handling a lot of conversations through customer inquiries through chatbots like WhatsApp chatbot and Messenger chatbots. So they're trying to leverage entire thing LLM based rack, uh, entire conversation. Then they're saying like, we can't reach maximum results. People are not using that. It makes a lot of errors and all that. And finally, they get fed up. is because they were focusing only on the technology. Uh, this is something I believe with supply and demand. So maybe in technologist, I'm business economic students. So this is something I really believe in, supply and demand. So right now, banking is something like not something like my grandparents or maybe parents used to have. So my grandparents, they used to visit a branch and open account and do the banking. And my parents, they were using maybe like internet banking or maybe telephone banking, or mobile banking even. So, and my generations also we experience internet to more or phone banking, and nowadays we are trying to access the open banking, API banking, all that, and I can access banking services from a third party through a PSP or maybe. So different people are creating different banking experiences. Maybe next generation they're actually expecting, as far as founder, as per my findings, they're expecting their own sort of experiences. So banks can't do all these customized experience alone. So then there has to be partnership with other, fintech developers or maybe other businesses, e-commerce, social commerce, etc. So how that can be done? So in order to do that, there has to be technical infrastructure such that, per se, like banking as a service, API banking, whatsoever. So when we have this technical infrastructure in place, we can't handle this traffic with this typical humans processes. Per se, being a bank, if I open a branch, I can handle per se like 100 to 150 customers per day. But if I open a API portal, there can be like 100 of fintech or maybe like startups. They are using our banking services and delivering services to millions of end users. Then the amount of traffic that I get is huge. Amount of investment that I have to do when it comes to fraud detection, anti-money laundering detection is huge. Is because I had to use fancy tools, not humans. Or maybe like the volume that I have to handle is huge, means risk also getting increased. Then demand comes for technology. Could be traditional AI, generative AI, or maybe something else. Then demands, to meet that demands, we need to find what are the technologies. Nowadays, agentic AI has become a good solution for that. But still, this traditional AI is doing a good job. Right. I mentioned this cost of decision. Uh, People make mistakes. Even bankers make mistake. So nobody is 100% correct at all. Like at least maybe point, like points values, somebody could make mistakes. So AI also make mistakes. So, but we need to understand what is the cost of this mistake and the cost of decision. Per se, making that decision, what's the cost, or maybe what's the loss? If that decision is wrong, what's the cost, or maybe what we gonna lose? If a customer make an inquiry to open a new bank account, a bot might give a wrong answer. So what's the cost for that? Monetary value, it's zero. Maybe there could be like a brand damage or maybe reputational damage providing wrong information, but monetary wise, technically it's zero. But per se, if somebody is asking to transfer $100,000 to another account, then it makes a mistake. The 100,000 he sends to someone else. Then the monetary value lost is 100,000, and then again we get the reputational issues and all that. So we need to understand what's this cost of decision and the cost of being wrong, actually wrong decision. So if I use agentic AI with some errors for fund transfer kind of scenario, so like decide into what's the route channel, then it's a risk, hugely risk, because sometimes the this being wrong might not be affordable. But providing in a certain wrong information to a customer doesn't impact monetary with a monetary value, but reputation. Per se, if 100 customers comes, we provide 90% correct answers and 10% wrong answers. Then we can compare that with if a human answer, if human did the same job, what's the rate of success and what's the rate of being wrong. Sometimes that could be 9 to 10 because humans also we can't expect 100% at all. There can be exceptional cases, but that person won't do the same job forever, right? So people keep changing. So if that value is maybe like a 10% differ or maybe equal, so what's the, you know, why it is wrong going towards the agentic AI approach, or maybe let a bot to handle that? Because anyway, people are also making a mistake. And when it comes to decision making, like loan approvals, a lot of people these days uh, get SMS or call saying from banks saying, okay, you are entitled for a loan, maybe you can apply for this loan, you are entitled, blah blah. How this pre-approval, like this identification comes, banks are having a lot of data of customers. So we can deep dive towards this data and identify who's having, credit worthiness and risk level and all these things, running a lot of algorithms, data science algorithms, and identify different customer segments, and then notify them you are entitled for this kind of loan, and this is how you can get it, and this is the rate you are entitled for, etc. For doing such a error in a system might not make a monetary value issues sometimes. If a human, if I employ a human to do that, he also makes error anyway. Then identifying a wrong customer to call for a pre-approved loan doesn't make any monetary impact, is because anyway he has to come through the loan approval process again, to the mandate and all that, and get the loan. Then I have identified a point where I can replace that with an agent. Likewise, there are tons of use cases within financial industry we can replace. So if you're trying to identify, or maybe any financial institution trying to identify, replace all these things without considering these two facts, cost of decision and cost of being wrong. So anyway, you're going to make a wrong decision anyway. Right. So cost of being wrong. Nobody is perfect in this real world. So AI also same. So some of the base models that I have listed when it comes to general knowledge, 88.3. This is CUDA 3.5 Sonnet. So first, think about a human. If you check IQ, or maybe general knowledge, can somebody reach 100% for any given random question? There can be exceptional cases, but in average, and GPT Pro, it's 88.7, and Meta Llama 88.6, and DeepSeek 84%, and Gemini 76%. So if you go through this small language model, general knowledge could be much lesser, but when you are using with rack with specific knowledge, for example, that could be how to handle a customer. So you're finding tuning that how to handle a customer with that, it will give much better result compared to this large language model, maybe like 95% plus with less hallucination. So with this Gen AI transformation, what we get out of that is speed. Because if you have replaced certain cases with agents, not with humans, you get the speed up because you can allocate this human force to do something else, and the cost reduction. Anyway, when it comes to application with small language models, the cost is very less because most of these banks are running on-prem, not like most of these Western bank. So in that case, it's very cheap because we have a lot of infrastructures from IBM, Dell, and they do provide a lot of this hybrid rack plus small language models, especially for these kind of automations. So it's very cheap compared to liability of a human, like an employee. And high volumes, we can accept a lot of volumes and we can scale it up n times. So, but we can't, scale up humans n time, because anyway we have this headcount limits and all that, HR policies and all that. We can't do that. But when it comes to these machines, these are agents, it's n, because we don't have to go through this HR. So this is a very old concept. when it comes to customer experience point of view, this cognitive banking. Basically, like, how do you feel about your bank per se? Forget about this AI and all that. When you think of banks, typically it's a very, for me being in a software engineer and all that, it's a typically a bit boring for me. I don't know for you, but it's a very boring area. And also certain the way this bank works, it keeps a barrier in between the customer and the bank in order to maintain certain formalities or maybe like to make sure the security and all that. The you can't visit all the bank branches 24/7. They have very specific opening time and close time and way of authentication, authorization, and all that. So it keeps sort of barrier. And sometimes when you visit to the Colombo branch or maybe head office, you will get treated well because they get to know you, they know you, who are you, and maybe your profile on that. They know you because that's the most frequent visited branch. But when you randomly visit to a remote branch, the staff doesn't know who you are. They might treat you regularly, and uh, since you don't have a relationships, like you are just ordinary customer. But when you walk to your frequent visiting branch, you will get treated well. It's because you have this cognitive relationship with the bank. But when it comes to digital space, banks are working towards something called cognitive banking, gives sort of a personalized experience to each customers. So this is also then again based on data because banks have in customers data and what's the language you have preferred to talk, or maybe like what's the most favorite merchant, or maybe like what's the most frequently withdrawn amount and from which ATM. So what's the most frequently fund transfer in pay, etc. So when you log into a mobile banking, you don't have to pick the languages on that. It's already know. And when you walk toward the ATM, so you have selected your language in a mobile phone, but when you walk towards the ATM machines, once you are authenticated, it knows this is your language. You don't have to select, and then the frequently withdrawn amount. It's by default. It's default selected. You can change it, but default selected. And certain frequent selected that by default it's there. Likewise, giving you an example. So likewise, banks trying to read you and emotionally getting close with you and build a sort of relationship being personalized. So this is a sort of potential that we're actually working with, and not only us, many banks are working with, get close to customers and treat them very personalized manner and understand them emotionally or maybe, and treat them like, feel them like you are special to us. So we expecting same thing again from the customers as well. Feel the banks very closely, become your lifestyle partner, that sort of thing. So in this journey, we were using a lot of this traditional AI. Right now, when it comes to this availability of agentic AI, and generative AI, we see a lot of possibilities. Is because based on your birthday, based on your the wedding anniversary, whatsoever, we can trigger certain things, and maybe we can based on the places that you have visited. If you have visited to our nearest branch, if we can identify through the CCTV camera, we can have certain events to attach you more closely, or maybe build a relationship, some sort of things. These are sort of like conceptual and R&D level, but technically possible. But I don't see any sort of this kind of application right now in my part of the world. But in R&D level, I have seen a couple of. So typically, these some of the standard numbers when it comes to banking. Before these numbers, let's get like some of the services like customer services, answering to customer inquiries, call centers, or maybe customer onboarding, or maybe closure of account, dispute handling. All these customer services, typically a human agent is handling in my part of the world. And when it comes to fraud detections, mostly by tools, then again, there are a set of human interventions also there. And credit scoring. Then it goes to risk department and various other couple of tools from one system they are downloading another system to to downloading and uploading certain CSV files and done by a human, and risk management, security, all these things. So these, the whoever who does this part are not generating any revenues to the bank directly. So they are sort of like a support departments. And when it comes to people who are doing business in the bank, like revenue generation stuff, it is very less. Numbers, ratio-wise, the operation staff close to like 60 to 70% in a bank. The revenue generation, 40 to 30%. This is totally dependent on the geographical area and the uh, nature of bank. But when it comes to replacement of certain processes with agents, because all these processes are very logical and straightforward processes, we have tried them some with the POCs and R&D level, can be replaced with higher accuracy level using the small large language models. That becomes close to like 40 to 30, like operations staff, and 70 to 60 to 70% revenue generation staff. So it's turning other way around. So we don't need like 60% to 60% of people to handle operations tasks. So maybe we can utilize them to generate money or do business, go and talk to customers and get a business done. So I'm seeing a lot of messages flowing in. We'll go through some. Question. Welcome. How we are handling data privacy and data wise, any government laws place a monitoring regularity, we can understand. The implementation flow and over the major challenge, risk and issue stability. Okay, good questions. First thing, I'll pick the data privacy. So when it comes to this part of the world, it's really hard to use cloud infrastructures. So we have to stick to on-prem infrastructures. In that case, most of these small language models, what we are using right now, because we don't use large language models straight away, something like OpenAI or maybe like Gemini. We don't use them actually when it comes to enterprise level automation applications. But there are certain other applications, but not for internal automation applications. We are using small language model. Means that we have deployed them on our on-prem servers. So no matter what we feed in and ask queries, that's within our banking infrastructure. So that complies bank's information security policy. Per se, bank is having information security policy when it comes to how to handle PII, personal identification information, and how to handle card information. Those things are compliant PCI DSS, IOSO, and all that is because we are within this bank's border. We don't go out. But when it comes to dealing with SaaS applications, so we have to send information out of the organization. So in that case, certain PIA information or maybe transaction details might go out. Also, we have no clue when it comes to large language model and cloud service providers, what they're doing to the data. Because they're not giving in written, this is what we're going to do, and these are certification knowledge, we don't get that. So in that case, we don't do that. So that is why we make sure that data privacy, and when it comes to data bias. All right. So bias, when it comes to small language models, since we context them in very focused area is very less, but we keep doing testing and adjusting in various ways. For example, the context we are feeding in, per se, with small language model, we do how to identify a dispute comes from a card customer. When it comes to dispute, there can be various disputes. So we can fine tune that with same as you do with GPT, with the temperature and this content that we are feeding in, and also the top K value, top P values. These are the only parameters we can handle. But likewise, this ML and deep learning. So we are not having full, what you call full control to handle this all these biases at all. But what we do is changing the context, or maybe what we are feeding in for ragging. And the government laws plays, okay, right. Specifically, we don't have a law to in order to govern this AI and all that, but we have a drafted one here in Sri Lanka. So that's not actually being approved by the parliament yet, but eventually that will be. But when it comes to, so we have regional business areas like Southeast Asia and Southeast Asia. So that part of the world, we couldn't get much of these legal guidelines from the regulators and all that. Only thing we get is this whatever they have when it comes to data privacy and data protection. That's it. Okay. Wait, share to my thing. Right. Thanks, Isha. Okay. All right. Now, so when it comes to agentic replacement for this kind of processes, actually, I just got these numbers logically is because if this is replaced by agent, this has to be the number. But nobody knows exactly what this number is yet because nobody has done this full automation, I would say. Still, we are trying it out and doing R&D works and all that. But sort of organization are getting these initiatives for cost reduction initiatives, FTC saving initiatives, or maybe like cost optimization initiatives, stuff like that. But we don't have 100% transformed use case which has totally eliminated. So in that case, we don't know this number yet. But I'm pretty sure these numbers will be close to operations close to 40% and revenue generation close to 60 or 70%. This is what I believe. But I don't know exactly yet. We'll see.
Yes, thank you, Dilan, for answering this question. So we have some questions on our live as well. So
Yeah,
should I take it for you?
go ahead.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
chat. Okay, right, sure.
Okay. So how is generative AI transforming traditional banking model?
Okay. So banks are primarily earning with couple of revenues. One is deposits, deposit and lending, the interest, and also transactions and foreign exchange and other value-added services. So when it comes to these processes, the main part goes to this operation cost. Entire cost goes to operation cost. So this cost is bearing by the customers, basically like who were paying our charges, or maybe like the borrowers and all these people. So if this cost being reduced, so the benefit goes to the customers and also to the investors of this space. So when it comes to transformations, so banks right now, even this, I'll show you end of this presentation. Some of the organizations already announced that they will do 4,000 employee cutoff, and some top banks close to 200,000 employee, cutoff, etc., etc. So how banking is going to be will be changed, the shape of banking and the business model and all that is because some of the banks are moving away from the consumer business. They are moving towards corporate business is because a lot of intermediate PSPs or maybe like fintechs coming into the picture and they are trying to provide various financial services to the end users. So in that case, the landscape will be changed. Certain players like fintechs and tech financial companies take into the consumer market, and finance companies like banks. So they actually moving towards something like corporate finance or maybe treasury, etc. So agentic AI is not the only reason for this because there are various other economic factors also there, but automation, including AI and all these things, and reduction of human dependency is a fact. So in that case, agentic AI, and generative AI is playing a huge part. What's the other question?
Yes. So we have one question on our chat box. So although AI is beneficial with regards to cost savings and automation, how do you think we can solve the job losses issues?
Okay. This is something I actually get internally as well. My answer is we need to upskill people for something for others thing. For example, if you are doing a sequential job, can be like data entry, or maybe like make a checker work, or maybe like something one like a banking executive, maybe operator. What he does is get application, check the inputs and input into another computer and download it. And the majority of these employees are doing these kind of sequential jobs, means clearly defined logical jobs. If somebody is doing such a job, it's good time to find something creative. Right now, as organizations, what we are trying to do is upskill these people to do creative jobs, means which require human intelligence. At the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned this AIs are very idiot. Plus, we need to be smart to use it. Then we need to make these people smarter to use this agentic AI, or could be like another type of AI, or maybe another type of technology, and use and get things done. For example, the best example is when I go through this, I had a very short time to prepare for this presentation. What I did was I generated a lot of these graphical contents using Copilot. So, and other people, I don't need to ask my assistant or maybe someone else to get a presentation for me now. I can do it by myself, or maybe I can ask another tool to do it. Or else, maybe like if I'm doing a lot of papers and a lot of writing works within this organization. In that case, what I do is only the sketch. Rest of thing I can get it done from the maybe like Copilot. I don't need to pay another salary to assistant or maybe secretary, whoever. Then that person needs to be smart enough to use this tool and learn how to get things done smarter way. If people thinking no, we'll be sticking to this, we are doing what we are doing and we don't want to do that, or maybe we don't need to upskill ourselves. So that's a sad thing. But if people are creative enough, there are tons of opportunities are there, because we need creative people to think creative and use these technologies. So that part of job space is creative. It's very liberative.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Dilan, for answering the question. Hope this answers the question for Ritvik. So we have next question, that is, what are some real world examples of financial institutes using generative AI today?
Okay, I'll give a couple of examples. One is customer inquiry handling. For example, if customer is having a credit card and he might get a duplicate transaction or maybe unknown transaction, he might show this question to chatbot. That could be a Facebook Messenger, or maybe WhatsApp, or maybe in-app messenger, just raising a concern saying like, I face this kind of incident. There's a transaction notification I got through my phone which I haven't authorized. The only thing he says is this incident only. But the typical chatbot, what it does is it's based on this intent training and machine learning utterances samples like label data. Sometimes it might not be handled these lengthy scenario, but when it comes to generative AI approach, what we do is we go through the context and identify real intent, and then forwards to a right direction, per se identifying a dispute through the given context. So another, that's a one task. And identify where should be redirected, that's another task doing by another agent. And then raise a ticket. Once it is raised, inform the customer, okay, we have raised the ticket, this is the difference, we'll go through that and investigate and we'll get back to you. So this thing is already implemented successfully. This is one thing, because this is one of the low hanging fruit that we can access easily with generative AI and agentic AI. And other thing is that pre-approval loans. Per se, customers are doing transactions through various mobile applications, wallets, and then we can identify various customer segment and their trends of doing these transactions with different merchants. then we can identify their cash flow and credit worthiness, and also the risk. Then we can, because we can see their inflows and the patterns of inflows, and how often time their accounts get zero and maybe close to zero, etc. Based on that, we can trigger various events through agent. For example, inform the customer that you will be getting entitled to get this loan. Please do certain transaction. Further, you'll be entitled for another level of uh, another amount of loan. So these kind of scenarios is already there, and also apart from these financial activities, banks are totally relying on this IT infrastructure. Even recently we got a lot of proposal from vendors saying that they can do integrations, API integration using agentic AI. We don't have to go through all these open API Swagger files and understand that. So once we upload the file, it will generate the content and do the integration and visually display how the integration being done, what are the standards being followed, and security vulnerabilities and all that. So these things are all there within banks, and some are not roll out 100%, but in production level are using in small scale.
Yes, thank you for answering this question, Dilan. So we have few more questions. So next question is, what are the key benefits of using generative AI for fraud detection in finance?
Okay, so we if you have heard something called SIEM. So we do this log analysis of these various financial applications, and I try to identify anomalies. For example, if we get huge traffic towards one payment applications and certain anomalies we can detect. These tools are already there for like from last 10 to 15 years. It's already there. So we can identify different anomalies. But once it is identified, what it can do is only alert. It alerts certain anomalies being detected, please attend. That's it. So, or maybe like infrastructure performance issues, or like hardware alerts and all that we get. But when it comes to triggering an action, so now it's been uh, automated almost with certain tools, but these things are not being implemented by the banks. These things comes with the vendors itself. This product itself, for example, IBM stack or Dell stack, with the tool, the stack itself, it's coming already. So likewise, like certain things even without banks knowing are there, which comes from these global vendors in production.
Okay. Well, we have many questions, Dilan, on our life as well. So just we are running out of the time. We'll just take the last one question. So, what ethical considerations should financial institutes keep in mind when using generative AI in their operations?
Okay, as for my definition, it's customers privacy. So it's because when it comes to bank, the key critical thing is trust. So when there is no trust, nobody wants to comes to a bank. There's a concept called untrusted network. Actually, untrusted network means the meaning is other way around. These decentralized networks. So why these cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all these comes to the picture? There's no central trusted authority. So everybody gets trust and confidence with the system itself. And when it comes to a central party involved, like banks or maybe regulator there can be, various concerns to the customers. Or is this party compromising my data? For example, telco. They can easily get your, what you call this SMS, and where we are say geographical locations and all that. But if you're concerned in your privacy, you won't trust these guys. So same thing to the bank. Why people keep their money is because of trust. So that's the number one priority we should worry about. So in that case, the first, more than its ethical concern, I would say in order to the sustaining this business, the first thing is customers' privacy in order to earn their trust. So ethical consideration, I would say, whenever whatever, no matter what's the technology we use, or maybe no matter what's the monetary benefits that we get, we need to make sure customers' privacy. So that's the first considerations. either keep the ethical side alone, but in order to survive in this business, trust matters in the financial sector. And other thing is that respecting the law. So we are governed by, the financial industry, highly regulated by government and other bodies. So we need to make sure the transparency and the respect the law and follow the law and not to violate that. So these two are the key consideration when it comes to selecting a technology and how we're going to do that and whatever.
Yes, thank you so much, Dilan, for taking all the questions. So before we move forward with gamification session, would you please like to add any last statement for this webinar today?
Sure. I'll end with one slide. This is it. So opportunities, I'm actually with the opportunity slide, I'm showing something negative for certain peoples, but those who are thinking positively, they can see this as an opportunity because DBS Singapore, so they actually, sending 4,000 off, and Citi and JP Morgan, this Goldman, so they actually AI is set to replace 200,000 jobs in global banks. These gives you another opportunity to learn generative AI, agentic AI, and no matter what's the other technology coming in, because you are the ones going to be hero within next couple of years. So this is the last thing that I want to tell you. Please learn and keep updated. It's a massive opportunity for you, but if you don't, you will fall in under these numbers.